For all the outcry from the left about former President Donald Trump's immigration policy, it seems President Biden's tact is increasingly becoming more and more similar to his predecessor. Why? Well, because we have a serious issue at the border that cannot be handled by our courts alone. The new policy President Biden has just announced seems an awful lot like the old one he denounced as a candidate. Last week, the White House announced that U.S. authorities and Mexican authorities struck an agreement where Mexico will now accept some Venezuelan citizens expelled from the United States under Title 42, which was a public health statute invoked at the start of the pandemic by the Trump administration that allows for the rapid expulsion of migrants. Venezuelans have been entering the U.S. through Mexico in increasing numbers, and here is where the hypocrisy comes in. It's a statute the administration is fighting to end in the courts, but continues to use in the meantime. And with Republican governors in border states like Texas and Arizona busing migrants to Democratic-run sanctuary cities, the pressure was increasing on the administration to act. Now remember, Joe Biden himself, days before the 2020 election, said, quote, "The Trump administration's anti-immigrant agenda does not represent our American values, period. President Trump and his administration choose cruelty and exclusion at every turn, even if you're fleeing the brutal socialist Maduro regime in Venezuela." And now, those very same Venezuelans are being turned away without a hearing. Let me be clear. I wish the U.S. could process everyone to figure out who should stay and who should go. I wish Congress would step up with a compromise to address the border issues. But it's not going to happen anytime soon. And so the Biden administration, it seems to me, has no choice but to do what it's doing, which is similar to what the Trump administration did. Title 42 has resulted in more than 2.3 million migrants being expelled from the U.S. since it was enacted in 2020, most during the Biden administration. So it seems it's either let everyone in to wait, presumably for a court date, or don't let anyone in. And sadly, the latter may now be the only option. But joining us now is John Sandweg. He's an attorney and the former acting director of ICE under President Obama. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right. So there are differences between the Trump policy and the Biden policy, but as a moral matter, isn't this effectively the return to Mexico policy?
Well, basically, Dan, it is. For all practical purposes, it's the same. This is people who come into the United States, they file an asylum claim. The administration says you can have your hearing, but you're not waiting for it here. And then we push them back to Mexico. So although the legal basis is different, and as you noted, there's some litigation going on about Title 42, and this is ultimately based on public health concerns, it is effectively the same result. You wait in Mexico until it's your turn to see a judge.
Look, I've long said that as imperfect as Title 42 is, right? Using a public health, I mean, come on, it's no longer applicable. But as a practical matter, it seems that there are really no other options because Congress isn't acting. And there is something incredibly hypocritical about the Biden administration in court saying we need to get rid of Title 42, but in the meantime, we're going to keep using it.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dan. I mean, look, it's all about this tension between the principles of the Democratic Party, frankly, the Biden administration, about being that safe haven for people who are fleeing persecution. I believe in those principles, but you're met with the reality of 2 million people in a year, record numbers. Countries, new populations, new countries are growing every day. So you do what you can, right? And what they need to do is right now with about more than 50% of the people are being subject to Title 42. We know we still have a lot of people coming in. Those people are overwhelming the system, not just the court system, but also this is part of the issue related to this busing. The groups that feed these people and take care of them, integrating them into our society while they wait for that hearing. That system is more than overwhelmed. The only thing the administration can do is rely on policies like this to try to limit the flow while they work on Congress, either making some legal changes, getting some more resources, or coming up with something that's going to diminish the flow of people at the border.
Because to be clear, we can't send them back to Venezuela.
That's right. We can't send them back to Venezuela. Now, listen, you're exactly right. This was an expansion because the kind of secret truth here is the Biden administration has been relying on a number of the Trump policies since day one.
Yeah.
I don't think they had much choice given the flows at the border. But that's right. This is all contingent on the Mexican government agreeing to let these individuals stay here. The breakthrough here was a high-level delegation went down to Mexico and was able to persuade the Mexican government to now allow Venezuelans to stay there. The U.S. is going to parole in 28,000 or so Venezuelans that they will give a special pass into the United States. Mexico insisted upon that. But you're right. Look, we're seeing a lot of the same policies here, but again, it's just out of necessity.
Right. I completely agree. I just think it's important to be honest about what we're doing and what we're not doing, and that's why we have someone like John Sandweg on, not because he only knows this stuff, but he's a straight shooter. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.